Welcome to Deeper Foundations, where conscious building meets personal transformation. I'm your host, Nick Stevens, a builder, project manager, and lifelong explorer of the deep layers beneath the surface of construction and self. In this podcast, we go beyond blueprints and budgets. We talk about sacred geometry, emotional intelligence in the field, healing through hands-on work, and the stories that shape who we are in the trades and beyond. Whether you're swinging a hammer, managing a project, or just curious about the heart behind construction, this space is for you. So let's dive in. You're listening to Deeper Foundations.
Sure. Okay, so my vision for Deeper Foundations started with an idea. I was up on a roof and just this idea popped into my head about wanting to talk about kind of conscious construction. I come from a background of working in construction for 15 to 20 years and took a break from it because I just had kind of a bad taste in my mouth of working in the trades industry for a long time. And I think we talked about this before, it just kind of being dominated by toxicity. I don't want to necessarily call it toxic masculinity, but there are a lot of men who are in the industry, and yeah, there's just a lot of toxicity in it. And so I stepped away from construction for a number of years because I was just so tired of kind of putting up with maybe just lower vibration energy within the construction space. And so by working on this project with Blake and Jeremy, it's just brought a whole different level of what it means to build consciously, to build with awareness, to be mindful while you're building. And while we're documenting this story, I also am inspired to just talk with other people about construction and what it's been like for them to work in the industry. There are a lot of people who are very tired of kind of the old ways of construction. And I think by sharing everybody's individual story, it will kind of shed light on what it's like to work in the trades industry. I think I shared with you originally, and maybe you saw it in part one and part two if you watch parts of it. The first guy that I interviewed, a friend of mine, he had substance abuse problems working in the construction industry and just in life in general, and kind of bringing that story to life and just talking about a very common thing that is prevalent in construction, and that's substance abuse and how that has an effect not just in your work environment but on your personal life. And he had a great depiction of when you work really hard in construction, you kind of reward yourself with like an alcoholic drink or smoking weed at the end of the day, but then it starts turning into this cycle where you're so burnt out and working around toxic people or whatever it is that you're then using that substance as a vice to kind of heal or cope with working in a really difficult industry. Another good example is my brother. He used to work in the medical field, and during the COVID years, he wasn't getting his COVID shot, and so he got fired from his medical job and then transitioned into construction. And so he tells his story, but the reoccurring theme within his share is not being controlled by fear. He didn't succumb to the fear of COVID and everything, which then pushed him into the trades industry. And so it just kind of, he talks about, building confidence and in himself and taking on projects that he doesn't know how to do perfectly, but rather than, again, succumbing to the fear, he overcomes it and just pushes forward. So again, not a whole lot of what it's like to swing a hammer, but more of the interpersonal journey and transition that people go through. And so that's what I'm really trying to capture within this. And just, I have so much to say on so many different aspects. Jeremy has a lot to say. Blake has a lot to say. Blake's episode, he wants to talk about his father, and his father passed away a number of years ago, and he started the construction, come to construction with his father. And when his father passed away, Blake went through this really deep, dark depression where he stepped away from the company and kind of abandoned it and went through this whole transition of what it was like to be without his father in his life, and then step back into that construction company which was just, in 2022, 2023. And now he's kind of emerging and building this passive house and, bringing in his healing work that he's done around plant medicines and bringing that into his company and his business. And so again, I keep using swinging of the hammer, but it's like, we're not talking about what it's like to install flooring or use a Makita drill versus a Ryobi drill. It's about the personal journey and the transformation that comes along with working in this industry. I think that is kind of a good overview of what I'm trying to do. Okay. Yeah. And to your point, I was listening to different things on how to start a podcast, and making it too broad in the beginning it's like the target audience kind of thing is just like, well, it's for everybody, it's like your grandma wants to listen to it. So I can understand where you're coming from of really hyper focusing on, one person. And that one person is the person who is working in the trades industry that is struggling to find like-minded people and connection. It's the one person that kind of feels alone, like, it's someone who feels alone in the trades industry, who is surrounded by a traditional mindset that things always have to be the way they've always been, and that there is no other way. When I talk to other people, it feels like in construction that everyone's on an island, and nobody is like really connected, and hey, I'm the only one that kind of thinks this way, or I'm the only one that kind of want to work in a positive environment. you know yeah, it's for the lonely construction people that are looking to find like-minded people. I guess is the short. I feel like I should be explaining more, but that's what it feels like. Because I know for me, growing up and working in construction, um, I didn't feel like there were, you know other people around that thought the way that I did or had the struggles that I did. You know. And maybe that's because I grew up in kind of like rural small town Ohio and didn't have access to like big city, mindset. So maybe it's the small town person that doesn't have access to a lot of diversity or culture. Yeah, they are receiving hope and motivation to speak up and share their story, share their views, uh, knowing that their voice doesn't have to be small, that their voice doesn't go unheard, and that if they were to speak their mind and put it out there in the world, that they are then going to attract the working situations that they really want to be in or that they most resonate in. And I'm saying that as like almost as if I'm creating this podcast for myself, like the target audience is actually me, Yeah, because I think I've had a problem, even now, even today, speaking my voice, speaking my truth in construction where I see something or somebody's acting a certain way, like I'm still quiet and I'm still timid and I'm trying to toe the line between not being an asshole and being a hard ass and like speaking my truth and not worrying about what the outcome is. And that's been, and I'm in this position with this passive house where because of the situation that we're in, there's somebody that I don't like on the job that's like installing the siding, but I don't have a siding installer to just be like, you're done, you're off the job, we need to bring somebody else in. But I haven't mastered being able to have the conversation with somebody and saying, hey, I don't like this. How can we change this, or how can we change this relationship and still like not create a negative experience where somebody then walks off the job. So what I'm trying to get at is just like this podcast is about like giving people the power to find their own voice and like speak it, myself included. Find myself wanting to create episodes with people, not just for their story, but for my story too, so that moving forward, you know, when I have job opportunities that come across, like I actually kind of want them to be like, hey, go check out my podcast, listen to the first introductory episode, and also episode 19, where I talk about conscious construction, and my personal episode to get to feel my vibe, you know, like I need people to know that like moving forward, if you're going to work with me, like these are my standards, these are my expectations, these are the construction projects that I want to manifest and bring into reality. And so I want that to be kind of a motivation for others when they listen to the podcast, is to be able to, you know, tap into their inner wisdom and their truth and authenticity, to not be stuck in working in a shit construction job and just doing it for 10 or 15 years like I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this just goes across the board. It doesn't necessarily have to be construction. You know, there
Sure.
are like
Totally.
very, yeah, very ego driven people who are not about co-creation and working together. You know, you have this very traditional construction worker that's worked in the industry for 10, 20, 30 years, and that's the only way to do something, is the thing that they've been doing for 30 years. You know, they're stuck in their ways. They have no ability to think outside of their own experience, and everything else outside of that is wrong or dumb or whatever label they want to give it. And so it's the toxicity is like the worst is just people being stuck in their own ways, and you know, projecting outwards like a negative feeling that they have, that their ego is kind of being checked. You know what I mean? Like it's like me telling you, oh, you're not, you know, oh, there's actually a different way to type on that keyboard to be faster. You know, you could actually put this into inputted chat GPT and it'll spit it things back out to you. And that person would be like, oh, well, you know, computers, this, and they just go on this long tangent about how whatever suggestion you gave them is wrong, or I don't know. That's a big, I would say that's a big one. Not being so stuck in your own ego that you're not open to co-creating with other people. And then another one would be, yeah, just a lack of exposure. You know, we're talking about middle America, white male, that is not exposed to other cultures and other ways of being and living. And so anything outside that kind of questions uh, their way is not good, or it's bad, it's negative, it's whatever. So I'm talking about, you know, sexual orientation, people of different races or countries or religions, and you know, I think that's a pretty big one. I think, okay, so Construction Confessions is an opportunity for people to really tell no holding back, like the messed up stories that happen in construction. Because even when I'm talking, you know, and I'm showing face, whatever, I'm pretty good at being somewhat conservative to like not throw people under the bus. But it's really an opportunity for people to anonymously be like, hey, I was on this job site and this person called me, you know, the F word, like we'll say fag, you know, and really be able to show the pain that they experience without necessarily having to like show their face. Does that make sense? I'm
Yep.
sorry to use that word, but it's just like that's the level and deepness that I want to go, but be able to give people the protection that they need to say what they need to say. It's not like some of it will be like really sad, some of it will be really heartbreaking, some of it will be really funny. You know, I don't know if I put the one in the episode 1 or 2, but I think I recorded myself talking about like when you don't have a porta potty on site for construction, you get really creative and things
Yep.
have happened, you know? There's other ones where, like, I've seen construction guys like pee in a bottle and then put the bottle inside the framed wall of like, no one's ever going to find it in 100 years, but like, I
Oh
don't
my
know,
God.
that seems really weird to do. It's almost like giving somebody the opportunity to admit that they did that, but not have to
Yeah.
like show face. And the people
Yeah.
that I talk to about it, they're like, "Oh, I've got stories. I've got
Okay,
stories."
so
Yeah.
what is the value they receive from sharing that anonymously?
The guest that is receiving that, or giving that, I think that the guests that are sharing that gives them the opportunity to share something without shame or guilt, or having a feeling that shame and guilt, like releasing something that they feel shame and guilt about.
Yeah. What
Uh,
is the audience receiving?
yeah, get that off their shoulders.
Yeah. What is the audience receiving from hearing these stories?
The audience is receiving. I mean, if it's funny, they're receiving like a little bit of humor, depending on how it drops in the show. If the show's pretty heavy, a nice, sense of humor would kind of give them a break from the seriousness, the deepness of it all. But also a way to connect with other people, to connect with a voice that is being vulnerable, and maybe they will also feel a sense of relief from shame or guilt from also having similar experiences or doing certain things, or having certain things happen to them where they're like, they'll feel, oh, I'm not the only one that's done that, or I'm not the only one that has had that happen to me. Yeah, our practitioner was saying that a lot of men, we are conditioned, or we are offered up two emotions that are acceptable by society, and it's anger and stoicism. Not that anger is accepted, but it's like those are the two emotions that we're like, oh, it's okay for that person to either or that man to be stoic or angry.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that, we're like, whoa, this is weird, this is different. You're not allowed to have that emotion. You can't show vulnerability, you can't show sadness, you can't
Right.
show all these other things. So I'm sure that the whole like anger thing, it kind of coincides with, okay, well, if people don't want me to show anger, I get kicked off the job site. Like, how can I be stoic? How can
Yep.
I have stoicism? And not that either one is bad, but I think that's why, like, okay, if I'm not allowed to be angry on the job site, then I guess I have to just be stoic. And how do
Right.
I do that too? Right. Yeah, let's go do this, but like, what do I want to do? And I'm like, that's kind of what Deeper Foundations is like, well, this is kind of my idea, and I want to put a lot of my energy into it. So what I'm getting at is like, yeah, I would like to move pretty quick, and put a lot of time and energy into it this fall.
Okay.
I think having some podcasts kind of recorded in the rear, so that I've got content to work with over the month of September and October, will lessen the pressure of having to find more guests and keep making more content, where we can just kind of massage that for a second, create
Yep.
our foundation, and then lift off, in like October, November is what I see happening. Because I truly would like to interview and I'd like to be part of the creative process. I mean, I can do a little website design, I can do a little bit of video editing, but also, it's about building a team of people who can do those things so that I can focus on interviews. Or, I mean, I'm all about showing up on the job site and doing in-person interviews. Like, that's where I see it, like me driving to Detroit or Nashville or whatever it is, and I've got a couple people that want to do interviews on a construction job site and like really put that much effort into it. And do I have thousands of dollars to make it happen today? Absolutely not. I'm just living paycheck by paycheck to like follow a dream, follow a passion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. This is really exciting. I think you're onto something here. Like this, there's such a need for this. And I love the implications for the larger culture as well, because every single person who does what you're doing and starts to create an impact in these ways
Yeah,
shifts the culture.
right. That would be awesome to have that impact, to like shift the culture of construction and like healing and emotional way, where we can just all show up on the job site and hold hands and sing together, like that would be harmonious.
That's what you're up to. That's what
Yeah.
you're doing. It's important work, okay?
It is. I feel like it's important. I hope it happens. I want to
Yeah.
see a shift happen in construction for sure.
Thanks for tuning in to Deeper Foundations. If something you heard today resonated with you, share it with a friend. Leave a review or reach out. I'd love to hear what's landing for you. Until next time, keep building with intention, stay grounded, and remember, the deepest work starts from within. See you on the next episode.